Tim Charles, you might know him as a Slice of Wood on Twitter, sent me these Holdfasts and asked for a fair and frank appraisal. And I have to say, even from the outset, that these are excellent Holdfasts. Hands down. And well worth the money. And I thank him very much for making these things for me. He's hand forged them, and he asked me for a review. So this is going to be my review of a Slice of Wood hand forged Holdfasts. Now, one of the first things Tim told me is that there would be oil on these, and I would probably want to use some sandpaper to clean off the oil. And if they didn't stick properly inside the holes, that I might want to rough them up with some sandpaper. So I've got a sheet of sandpaper I sharpened my pencil on. It's got some graphite on it, but that won't matter because I'm going to be sanding steel. I'm just going to take a little piece and just give them a quick scuff just to get any oil off. And the interesting thing is that I noticed on the other one when I did it was that it left kind of a nice patina. It looks kind of rustic, and I really like that look. Now I've got this old tack cloth that's seen many projects and needs replacing, and I'm just going to use that to clean off the dust because I don't really want this metal dust on any of my woodworking projects. So, and that actually, the resin on that leaves this a little bit on the sticky side, but you get that nice sort of patina. I don't even think you can see that. It's got a nice kind of a hand-forged look. And so, basically, I just went all over the whole Holdfast, just with a light scuff. It didn't take very long. It's just not something that takes a lot of time. I just went and scuffed it up and got rid of the oil and cleaned it off. Now, one thing I noticed when I did this was that the sandpaper would catch some burrs here, and I noticed that there were some burrs around the outside, and I just wanted to get rid of those so that I didn't cut my fingers open or scratch anything. So what I did was I just took a half-round file and just ran it in there and took the burrs off so that it was smooth. I didn't want to do very much of it. I just wanted to get rid of anything that felt rough, and that's all it takes. And you can see from the other one that I've done that on the inside. I did that a bit on the pad, and any of the rough stuff around the edge of the pad I took off with a file. Okay. One thing I did notice was that when they came out of the box, the Holdfasts tend to stick and they don't want to go in. And that's probably because when Tim did this, he sort of pounded down these, as one would expect, and when that happened, right above where the pounding happened, this is actually slightly larger in diameter. And that's an easy fix. All I did was I took a flat file and I just went around it with the flat file to find the high spots, and then I just knocked the high spots down a little bit until everything was smooth and about the right size to slide down into the hole. So really none of that took very long, although I'm going to skip over and show you the one that was already completed. And I'm hoping you can see the shiny spots. I just had to knock that down. When you pound this, this is hot, and it's only natural that that's going to expand a little bit right around that waistline where the pounding took place. And it didn't take very long to fix that, and the Holdfast will slide down neatly into the hole. Now, you don't want this to be loose. You want it to have a little wiggle room, but you don't want it to be too loose. I mean, the idea behind this is that when you place a piece of wood under the duckbill portion, I guess you'd call it, of the Holdfast, that you give it a rap on the head, and the bar, this shaft of it, will wedge inside the hole, and friction will hold the piece in place. Now, I've seen these for years. I've seen these back on ancient episodes of the Woodwright Shop that I've watched probably since it first started. And, I always used to see Roy Underhill using these, and then I see him later in books, and think, why in hell would somebody use a piece of iron like that when there's got to be some newer technology with a screw vise type thing to hold wood a lot more effectively than that? And the older I get, maybe, the more I realize that older technologies like this, the centuries and thought and all of the projects that these kinds of tools were used with, you cannot beat some of these old technologies. And it just amazes me how well and how perfectly these things are suited to the task. But so speaking of newer technology and a newer take on this, a few years ago I bought this. This is the Lee Valley Veritas version of pretty much the same thing, and it's a high-tech version. It's got a shaft on it, if you can see that, that's ribbed, that's supposed to hold better inside the hole, and that screws into a cast head, and there's a cast arm here with a big brass knob. And I've used this faithfully for a long time, and I've really enjoyed it. But I have to say, in all honesty, if you take a piece of wood and you clamp it down with this baby, first of all, those ribs are ripping up the inside of my dog hole. It's harder to get down into the hole, and then to use it, I've got this uncomfortable big brass knob that you've got to reef on, and it takes actually quite a bit of work to reef on that, and even when you do that, the wood, it doesn't take much to spin it around inside or underneath the end of that jaw. So, I mean, really, although I like this, and Lee Valley, don't get me wrong, I love Lee Valley tools, I buy a lot of them, I have to say, the inside of my palm hates that knob. It's horrible. Not only that, aside from the fact that this is ripping up my dog holes, it's loose all the time. And I've thought of putting some epoxy in there to keep it from screwing out, but I guess I haven't had the heart to do that. Now, on the other hand, the shaft will not fall out of this because it's all one piece. It doesn't have any ribs to rip up the dog holes, and all I need is that to use it, and it saves my palm, and I don't have I've done a couple carving projects where I'm moving this thing every couple of minutes, and honestly, there have been days where I've had to quit. My hand is so sore from turning this knob. Okay, let me show you how it works. Now, I wanted to prove a point, but I forgot to put a clamp pad under that Veritas version. And I always use a clamp pad, whether it's a scrap like that, I don't know, I don't even remember where that came from, or like the cheeks of a tenon that have been cut off. I've always got little scraps that I keep just for that purpose. So just to prove the point, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to go straight to the Holdfast. It's the same board, same spot, the cup's in the same orientation because it's a piece of garbage board. I'm just going to drop the Holdfast into place, approximately in the same place the other one was. Give it a wrap, and it doesn't move. There, I had to really reef on it. The Veritas one, it just swivels around under the head, and it just does not hold as well as this. So, I guess I've basically showed you how it works. I'll just back up and explain it. Boy, that was wedged in there with one tap. Okay, so basically, you set your piece of wood down. I like to use a clamp pad. You slide the Holdfast down on the hole with the duckbill thing, I call it a duckbill, over the clamp pad, and you hit it on the top. A good crack with a mallet. Now, if it's not quite, that could be a little tighter, I can give it another whack. And then it is really tight. Really tight. It's not going anywhere. Now, it's kind of like, you know, Newton's law is the tighter I make it, the harder it's going to be to loosen it too. But to loosen it, you just give it a crack at the back, and I like to give it a little lift. It kind of assists and speeds the process. You just, there, took 3 cracks, but I had that cinched down really hard, and that's all it is. That's all that you do with it. Now the nice thing with it is it'll clamp thick stuff. It'll clamp thin stuff. My only issue with the thinner stuff, and it's not so much an issue because there's a nice arch on the back, is that the thinner the piece of wood, and that one's, the thinner the piece of wood, the problem is there's less arch here to give a whack to loosen it. So you can actually whack it also from the back side underneath the bench, and it comes out perfectly well. On the other hand, I can clamp stuff, and I had a piece of wood, but I don't remember where I put it. I had a piece of wood that was really big, and it was actually a little portion of a log, and I could clamp it up to about maybe 6 inches tall with this, and it would still work. So for most of the work that I do, this probably won't get more than about 4 inches off the bench top, and it's perfect for that. And it's self-adjusting just by gravity, and you don't have to worry about whether or not you've got your screw set to the right height or anything like that. Another thing that you should know is that I'm clamping stuff to the top of the bench. There's some benches like the Nicholson, or sort of English style benches, that have an apron on the front of the bench that goes vertically, and they've got dog holes in that vertical piece. If you're going to joint the edge of a board that's sitting up against the edge of your bench, if your bench has one of these aprons with a dog hole there, you can work this sideways too. Okay, let me just clear the track for Eddie's shack here. One of the drawbacks of having a small shop and the way things are set up in here is that I have these dog holes that have, you can see, I hope you can see that there's some black Sharpie in there. I've got black Sharpie in a row of dogs that extend right across the on the second half of my bench. It's the only place I have that, and the reason for that is that underneath my bench I have a jointer that rolls out, and that if I put the dogs in there while the jointer's under the bench, I'm going to probably crack the casting, so I like to be careful about that. Okay, so you've seen how it works and the benefits of the one-handed clamping that you can get with this. Here's a little bit of a bonus. A guy called the English Woodworker on YouTube has this video about the Holdfast and the Batten. I just love that. Like a lot of people, I have an end vise on the end of my bench, but it's not quick release, and every time I want to plane the surface of a board, I've got to crank and crank and crank, and it's a royal pain in the bottom. So I've got this piece of wood. It was what was under the mattress in my bed. Got this bed frame from IKEA, and it's nice wood. It's a little hard. My 8-year-old had trouble carving her name in it, but I'm going to turn this into a batten and show you how that works with a holdfast. Now, in order to make a batten, you need to make a 90-degree sort of a ledge in here that's set at 45 degrees to the long axis. So the way to do that is you just take your combination square and you use the 45-degree angle thing to... Alright, let me try that again. The thing slipped. I'm going to hold the thing down, and that will keep it from slipping. You take your combination square and use the 45-degree fence, and you go from one corner and you draw a line at 45 degrees to the long axis of the board. And then I will take the same setting and I'll come over here and I'm going to make a little 90-degree ledge that's also at 45 degrees from the long axis, but on a diagonal and on the other side. So whoops, everything's sliding today. So I'll draw that in there. Now all I want to do is chop that out and I'm done. This board could be a little thinner, so with this board I'm limited to planing stuff that's more than this thickness. But what I'll do when I'm finished the video is I'll probably just clean this up and plane it a little thinner and dress it up a bit so it doesn't look as beat up, and then I'll be able to plane just about anything with it. So let me cut this out and I'll show you how the batten works. Okay, so here's my batten. It's a little thicker than it should be, and really it's probably about 16 inches long would be ideal, so it's too long, and I'll dress that up at the end. But if I wanted to surface plane a piece of wood like this, and it doesn't matter if it's small or large, as long as it's thicker than what the batten is, I can locate this for surface planing anywhere on the bench. But this is, I've found, the fastest and easiest way in order to lock this piece of wood down. Now, in order to do it, I just take a bench dog and I insert it in the bench, and I push the piece of wood up against the bench dog, and then I place the batten on the opposite corner with that 90-degree bird's mouth against the wood. I take the holdfast, I drop it in the bench, and I don't use a clamp pad here because this, and I could put it anywhere on here that I wanted to, as long as it's holding the holdfast down, and or holding the batten down. And I give that a good wrap, and the batten will swivel out. But once this piece of wood swivels in and hits that batten, I can reef on that all day long, and it's not going to go anywhere. So I don't have to worry about moving wood around or screwing the end vise and over again. It's in there, it's solid. I can face plane that, and when I want to pull it out, I just grab the board and out it comes. So there's a little something extra. Tim, I have to say that for my money, that has got to be the coolest tool around. You've done a fine job on it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work you put in. I guess I got to finish filing that one. So thank you, Tim Charles, for the lovely holdfasts. They were well worth the money, and I hope this video does them justice. Yes, he's a lumber-colored pussycat. He's a lumber-colored pussycat.